Back here in our Z80 Assembly code, we're making fast food, as you might remember if you've seen the other videos. I hope you have, or you already understand roughly what this is all doing. I will be talking over it again as I go through, but obviously I'm not going to retrace every step that I've already taken. Right now we're back in the code, but we're not in the right terminal location. You can just right click here. I definitely need to go over the setup here in case anyone needs to know how I've set this all up to work. You'll have to give me a comment if you really desperately need that, and then I'll do it immediately then. But basically you can copy path, CD. F.tap on it. Oh, invoke item, F.tap. Okay, and that's where we left off. I've tweaked the mic again because it's seeming less than optimal, but now I think it's too high. So I may end the stream early and go back and listen to it. But for now I'm going to just load up Twitch and see if anyone comments. Okay, so basically we can move our character, and that's it. That's all we can do, left and right movement. And that's all we want for this simple game. We're going to now create things to drop. You can see the cursor there. They're just going to drop randomly. This is 0 to 256, which is convenient because, or 0 to 255, because that's the size of 1 byte, which means we can do all the calculations in A, and it will result in a number between 0 and 255, which is brilliant. I don't like this red stuff here. So we introduced this random number generator yesterday, and as you can see, it puts a random number into the A register by stepping through the early part of the spectrum ROM. The loop is what's the word? Restricted to the first 8K of ROM. It's not really important. As I say, if you're really just beginning, you probably want to just learn how to use some of these functions without making them. If you already know how to do that, then you start learning exactly how to make these. It becomes trivial. Well, not trivial. I spend a lot of time getting it wrong before I get it right. We just want, what do we want to do first? Have we got a sprite for the burger? I believe we have, yeah. And we have an array of food data. Now, that allows us to have 5 on the screen at any one time. They're all set to not being alive, so there's nothing showing. We need to write code similar to what we've written here, but we need a loop for each one. It's going to loop through all of these. The first thing we want to do with them is delete them, strangely enough. We can use our delete sprite, but we can do that afterwards. First thing we're going to do is draw them. So actually, just for testing, I'm going to set 2 of them to being alive, and I'm going to set the X position to 50 and 100, and I'm going to set the Y position to 20 and 20. So we can now just create a loop that checks to see if any of these are alive, and if they are, draw them. We're doing everything in tiny steps, simple steps, the way you start when you're learning. This is how you do it. Unless you have a massive brain box, I mean, if you're making a real game, you'd pre-plan everything, but you'd already know then all the knowledge you need to know, and you'd just be drawing down on paper or in planning software to see what classes are going to be created to do what specific task and how that's going to link in with the rest of the code. But you don't need to do that. We're learning here. We're just drawing sprites, moving them about, making simple little games. So this is how I would do it, and it's a naive approach. But we're in our main loop, and we're just, as you see, that should be good with that, really. You know, we're just looping through, and we're putting the correct data into the registers, and then we're calling the different functions to draw and delete the sprite and move it. So in here, we'd want to be able to, we could just draw all our code in here, but obviously it'll get really messy. So eventually we'll break it down into its own function. But for now, I'd want to do something like call draw all food. That's all we'd want, really. We want something that's straightforward in main, but we haven't got that yet. So we'll go all the way to the bottom, just before where the data begins, and we'll call it draw all food. I think that's what I called it. Yes. I'm terrible at scrolling. There we go. Okay, so now we've got. I talk about pseudocode, and I don't really practice it, but it's very important. Write everything out in plain English first. This draw all food just loops all foods, all food data. No, foods was better actually, I think. Loops all foods, checks if is alive. Oh, it's terrible, this code editor for that. Checks if alive. If it is, draw it, draws it. I'll do it for now. Every time I press enter. Okay, now what you really want to do is inputs. What does it take in? Well, it's going to take B register, because that's, as I mentioned in another video, that's often used for counting down through a loop, because there's a built-in function which I'm going to show you that uses B. So we're going to want B to know how many food are there. Maximum food. And that's probably enough for now. IX is the other thing, and that's going to hold a pointer to food data. Okay, so that's going to hold that address there. It's going to have its own address. You don't see the address. It doesn't matter. It's somewhere in our memory, which is starting at that address. I've forgotten where I am now. Yeah. So this is actually another naive way of doing it, because you can it's a bit more complicated, but you could put another byte here, 255, and you can just make sure you never have 255 as the first bit on any others, which you don't need, because that's just saying is it true or false, is alive. So 255 could mean something completely different. That could mean end of array. And that way we can eliminate the need for B. And we can just check to see if this first bit is 255 and exit the loop at that stage. If it is, it means you've checked all of them. So we'll do that instead, actually. Requires less registered being used. It's going to use less processor in the long run doing this. Draw foods. IX now points at the food data. So the first thing we want to do is load A with IX. And what's that going to do? It's going to look at that very first bit there. It's a 1. But as I say, first I want to check, are we at the end of the array? So we use our compare 255 and is it at end of array? And now I don't even know if array is the right word for this, but that's what I call this grouping of the same data over and over in a list or collection. That's an array, basically. Is it at the end of the array? If yes, return. So return Z, because when things are equal, when that is equal to whatever is in A, Z becomes set. So the bit Z becomes 1, and that means it's true. It is 0 between those two, subtracted. So we're going to return, and therefore we won't draw anymore, because there obviously could be data here, and if we don't tell it to stop, it's just going to continue thinking that this is more food data. Okay, so after we've done that, we'll then check IX again. Well, we don't actually need to do that because it's already done. We've already loaded A with IX. But if it isn't 255 and it's got past this return statement, we want to check, is it 1? Is it alive? Again, return. Let's check if it's dead. Is it not alive? So therefore I've just forced a convention on myself that 0 means dead. So anything other than 255 is alive. I'm overcomplicating it. You just change it to 1 when it's alive. It's as simple as that. If you were going to optimize this program, you'd be able to use just 1 bit, but I'm using a whole byte. I find it much easier to code that way. Don't have to mess about with the bits. So anyway, it's going to return if it's not alive. So we're not going to draw then. But if it is alive, we want to draw it. So what does our draw function require? Well, that requires a HL to be pointing at the bitmap, and then it requires IX to be pointing at the properties. Well, IX is already pointing at the properties for this first bit of food. So the only thing we actually need to do is point AL at the bitmap. And funnily enough, the bitmap won't be the same for everyone. I was going to say, if the bitmap was the same for everyone, we could actually load HL before we started the loop. But because food is not always going to be a burger, it can be an apple, we're going to have to call it every time. So, I've got myself lost already. I mean, we'll forget for now. We'll pretend everything's a burger. We've only got the burger sprite. But that was a little side point that we need to bear in mind when we do add the other food. But we need to load HL with a pointer to that data. So there we go. as I've mentioned many times, but I'll do it again, if I'd put the bracket there, that's going to load HL with the data in there, which it would have took them to the first 2 bytes. We don't want that. Call draw sprite. It's as simple as that. That's going to draw the first sprite if it's alive. Now we'd run into a problem if that was dead, because we haven't told it to increase IX. It's going to loop every time and just look for IX. It's no good. Also, I've already mentioned this as well last video, but the data format has to be in that order, because I've told it where IX is, but this draw code will look into IX plus 2 and IX plus 1. So it has to be in that specific order. Otherwise, obviously, you're going to get things completely wrong. So we've already got that in the correct order. We want to draw the sprite. That's great. But as soon as we've done that, we need to move up to the next sprite and call the loop again. So have I already done this? No. The best way to do this is to set up a constant and just count how many. It's the quickest way, in my opinion, to do. So we do like food, data, length, EQU for a constant. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bytes per piece of food. I'm going to comment that. Yeah, so now we've got that amount there. We just want to add that value. I think you can actually add IX. You can't do arithmetic on every register, so this might not work, but let's try it. I haven't got my reference, well, I'll call it a book, but it's online. I haven't got that in front of me right now. In fact, I'll load it now. You won't be able to see it, but I'll make sure that you can do this. As I say before, this is called Z80 Heaven, and I find this the best one. There's loads of sites with it. Oh, of course, you have to add it. You have to add it into another one. So I was lucky I checked that. So we're going to have to destroy a register here and make sure we do the right one. I think BC is fine, so we're going to load BC. But again, we can't load BC, I don't think. Let me just again check this now. I'm always checking the reference book. Oh, you can put a number into BC. Let's try that. So load BC with that constant value we just made, food data length, and add IX. That's the important bit. We're adding 7 to IX. Not the value, it's the pointer. It's a memory address. We're just adding 7 onto that memory address. So add IXBC. Add I don't want to add 7 in case we change the length, so add food data length to IX. After we've done that, we can literally loop back, so JP is the fastest way to jump. JP all foods. Now again, we don't need to worry about how many, we can actually have as many as we want now in here, and as many rows or as you want of data. Because it's just going to hit that and be like, okay, I've found the end of the array, return. and then the next time it comes along to call this, that IX is going to be refreshed back to the start, because you're going to do that yourself right here. Like that. And I think that's all we need. This should draw a burger at them positions. Let's give it a try. I'm quite new to assembly myself. I've been doing it a few weeks. So I'll use my Pseudocode commands. Oh, error in line 77. Okay. That shouldn't be an error. Oh, seed is undefined. It should be random seed. I don't know how it's changed to seed. Alright, this should work. Yes, it does. There's no errors. Oh, I don't know. I'm having problems. Here we go. My keyboard and my joystick, well, gamepad, are both terrible. I apologise. Okay, so this is it's loaded, but it hasn't actually done anything good. So I've missed a step. Normally it's a case of you've put a bracket in the wrong place or something like that. IX pointed to properties. HL. I think it's fine to load that there, but I'm going to try it up here. I can't see this fixing the problem actually, but let's just try it. No, exactly the same. I'm pretty sure it needs to be a pointer. Maybe it needs to be data. I'm 100% sure this ain't gonna work. No, it's done something else. It's just putting random noise. Sometimes it's like this, unfortunately. Thankfully, I do have a working example I can refer back to if I need to. Just tidy it up a little bit. Have a look what's going on. Because I'm not expecting it to look like anything special, but it should look a bit like a burger, you know, something like a burger. It's definitely not rendering correctly. Oh god, it's still doing that now. And saved it, maybe. Yeah, it's back to normal. What the heck is that doing? Why isn't there two of them? Let's worry about one for now. Let's just get rid of this one. Just doing the first one, it's doing it incorrectly. Oh, I know why I think. Oh no, it'll return. See, most of the time when you make a function, you always have to have a return statement, but actually this will always jump until it finds the end, and then it will return. Let's try that. No difference. Put out my working one. See, the thing is, it's a lot more complicated. There's one called Play Road. Oh. I'm going to struggle here, I'm afraid. I'm sorry to do this. Trying to see what I've missed. Yeah, I'm convinced I've destroyed a register without thinking about it. I need to push and pop it. Which one is it? HL points at bitmap. PC. I use PC, but I just load it directly. Crikey. How am I struggling? It should be so simple. It's always something simple when you figure out what it is. Let me have a look at what it's doing. I will try and work it out. How does it get that from that? It should be mostly filled. It should be almost filled like a burger. It should just have a bit in the middle missing. All we've successfully learned is how to loop, and we need to at least get the sprite drawing correctly. Ah, that's why. What an idiot. I've said it 100 times. HL equals food data pointer. That's wrong. The draw sprite wants a bitmap in HL. IX is the data. Burger sprite. That's what it needs to be. Ah, silly Billy. If only we had people in the chat, eh? Burger sprite. Sprite bitmap. It's nice to keep things generic in the comments where you can, because of course you could copy and paste that and just change the sprite name. You know. Come on, this has got to work now, surely. Right. So we got a burger on the screen. We're still missing the end. I need to investigate that. Seems to me. Is that matching the bitmap? Seems to be missing a line. Yeah, it's missing a line. So that's something that certainly needs to be looked at. Let's have a look now. I mean, the draw code I've used in other projects and I haven't altered that, I don't think so. That is going to work. We don't need to modify that. But this is so straightforward. Very strange. Let me check how the player's drawing it. So it must be something in here. Player data. I'm going to just try this. It's going to not work, I don't think. Put the number of lines up to 9. Can't be. Can't see that working. It's missing the top now. Or is it? Actually, that's working. I don't know why. Right, well, in that case, The reason is the loop. It's looping. It's ending one too early. And actually, we're decreasing B there. That's wrong. Let's comment that out. Comment that out. Change that back to 8 like it should be. I knew I'd get there in the end. See, it looks like it's squashed at the top, but that's just the way I drew a crap sprite. As you see down here, it looks all good. So a little recap of what we've learned in this last half hour is just basically how to loop. And we've learned obviously again how to point at certain parts of the data. We've used our draw sprite function that we've already written. But aside from that, you could be using any function. We've looped through an array of data and we've controlled it. It now goes through, it checks them all. This is another thing I was worried about though. Why doesn't it? This one should also be drawn. So let's try that. And it hasn't, so this is our next problem. I'm not doing very well because the last project I made, I breezed through this kind of stuff without paying much attention. And it worked. It's the first go. So I don't know why I'm struggling now. So let's see, why is it not finding any more? Let's try drawing it as 60x just in case, or 70, just in case. That's not going to make any difference whatsoever. Let's try. No difference. So why is there not 2? We've increased IX and we've gone back to the next food. It won't have been 255, so it won't have done that. Ah, of course. I've returned too early on the 0. It needs to jump back. What it needs to do is it needs to jump to here. That's what it needs to do. So we'll call this one skip to next food. I like to use long names so that they don't get duplicated. If I wrote skip or skip to next, it might get used again in another loop. Because really we're going to probably want to write skip to next. Draw. Skip to next food. Like that. Because it does soon, you start using the same terminology a lot otherwise. And it just looks like a big spaghetti of code. So we've got the draw, when you're doing the draw and it's all foods, we could probably just put foods, better, draw foods. In fact, let's do that. I like to just pluralize, that means it's an array. Normally if I have an S on the end, it's always dealing with a loop, like an array. So draw foods. Draw foods. And now instead of returning when we find a 0, a dead one, what we want to do is jump to draw, skip to next food. It's going to just skip that bit. If not alive, skip draw function. Let's make it super obvious. Draw it. Okay. BC equals food data in bytes. loop back to start. Oh, just loop back. There we go. To beginning. No, I don't want to get confusing. It's hard. Okay. Do you reckon that's going to work? I do. Oh, except for it didn't compile. Total food is undefined. 99. I'm ridiculously silly, and I. There we go. Draw foods. If you're watching, you probably noticed that straight away before I did. Now we've got no foods. So why is that? See if any of the viewers can tell me. Because I don't know. I haven't even looked at it. I thought I was going to work. My logic is flawed, as Spock would say. If it comes across 255, it ends. That's great. That's what we want. Do we need to see that? Don't think so. No. If it, that's why I didn't put a condition. It needs to be jump Z. So really, I'm expecting this one to work now. Yeah, there we go. We've got 2 burgers. What's better than 1 burger? 2. Well, how about 6? We can't do 6. We can do 5 straight off the top of the head. We've got 5. And I said we can't do 6. Well, I was lying. Just copy it. And there's another one there. So this is already starting to look like a game. Like it's, it's not a great game, but it's got the elements of it. You can move about. We could make these full now, and you got a game, haven't you? But the next thing we need is the random spawner. That was just proof. Well, that's actually getting a bit of ahead of ourselves still, because if I make these move now, they're going to do what happened before with the player, which is they're going to leave all of their old sprites behind, and a big trail of burgers will be left on the screen. So we need to delete it before we move it. But I like to do it in reverse order. I like to see everything as I do it. It's much better. As you just saw there, we ran into lots of problems. So it's better to be able to see results quickly and fix them if you don't see the correct. So what we're going to do is we're going to move it first, and then we're going to delete it. We've got to move left and move right. But I think that they're just for the player anyway. I don't think the burgers are going to move left and right in this game. They're just going to fall straight down. But I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, could we reuse that without affecting the player? Well, we could. If you look, they just want IX again, and the format is the same for the burger and the player. So we could just use those if we wanted to. ix equals data pointer. Should have at least some comments, it helps a lot. Sorry, just taking a little break. So sorry about that noise. Okay, where were we? Right, we're going to make a move down function. Move down. That's a label, as I've told you before. But I'll say it again in case you're brand new. So it's really simple. You can copy the one above, really, look, but instead of getting the X pos, we want the Y pos, which we store in the third bit at byte along. The first bit's checking if it's gone too far. We don't need to do that right now. We just want to add a speed variable. The speed, as it goes, it should have its own speed variable. There. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one. Add a ix plus 5. And then simply load the ypos value with the value in a set new ypos value. We want to return, so we go back to the piece of code where we were when we didn't need it in this because of the way it's written. As I mentioned, it's always going to get to the end of the array before it returns. Great. If we want to move our sprites, we're going to need another loop. We can't just move it like we did with the player. ix got destroyed in the process because it's a loop and we increased it. So we're going to want to load it again. Same thing. And call move foods. It's very similar to draw foods because in fact I'm going to copy paste it. Because the main bulk of this, I'll have it above because it makes sense. Let's have it above it. The same bulk of this is the same. If we get to 255, we end the loop. If it's not alive, we skip. But if it is, we call instead of calling move, we call move down. Doesn't need a burger sprite in HL. This needs to be called move foods. Move skip. See what I mean about that? By the way, it's instantly come into play. And then we move. We again just the same again. Put the same value in. Jump back to move foods. It's really that quick and simple. I think they're all going to fall now at a rate of 2 per frame. There we go. Of course, that spectrum memory, that white stuff you saw, is where I mentioned before it's moved down below the screen. You start from 0, 0 at the top of the screen, so it's going up and up and up in value as you go down the screen. And when you hit the bottom, this calculation inside draw is using that value, and it's coming up with a number that's higher than the memory of the screen, and you're now writing into color memory, which is why it all went white. And we can easily combat that. That's the reason for the is alive bool. There's 1 here, because when we move down, excuse me, we could do a conditional check to see whether we want to let it move down, or in fact we could kill it when it hits the bottom. In fact, we could make another function, although you do need to bear in mind that every time you call functions and load all these registers, you're using part of the processor. So if you can combine it, it actually makes sense. In object-oriented programming languages, it doesn't make much sense to bulk everything together just to save on instructions. But in that one, it's best to, in object-oriented C++, C#, Java, especially, it's worth just creating a class to do almost everything in its own class. But here you can just you've got, it's very strange. You got to. I'm still learning it myself. I'm used to object-oriented, but you have to you can string things together. You have to be very clever with how you string it together to save instruction time. So I'm rambling again, but basically I'm going to put it into move down. It's going to find out if ypos is above a certain value, it's going to kill the thing. Yeah. So first we'll do a constant to say how what is the maximum y for any sprite. We'll make it simple, so we can just call it max y. And it's not 256, it's actually 192 in lines. But we've got to worry about the height, the size of the sprite, which is 8 high, plus the speed, which is 2, so that would be a minimum of 10. I'm going to just, for a round number, put 15. Bit of leeway in case I change the speed later. In fact, let's put 25. In case we have them going super speedy later. So that's the constant setup. I've lost track of where I am in the code. Yes, here. So get ypos. Compare ypos. Ypos is in A now, so we're comparing to A. Max y. Okay. Now I'm going to look at my flags at Z80 heaven. I should come up with a way of showing you this, but just learn to check it out. Z80 heaven, and it got all the instructions there. Very good examples of how it works. So I'll go to Z80 heaven and I'll write CP, which is the instruction CP. And as it's telling me how it sets the flags. I've described it many times. I won't do it again. There's no one listening right now anyway. If there's people in the chat that wanted to hear it, I would of course tell you. But we want to know, is A larger than max y? And for that, the C flag would be reset, which means it would be 0. So if it call NC, which means we're going to call this next function if C is not set or reset. So C is 0. That means A is larger than or equal to max y. Kill. Food. I forgot what we were dealing with then. Now I could call it, I'm trying to work out right now, should I have its own function or just a jump label kills it? And then I think I'm going to make a function. But this function, kills some food, kills a food, kills one food, kills the food in IX. Food. So as I say, IX is already in there. It's pointing at the food we want to kill. Latency as well. We don't want to do anything with it after that. Load IX 0. Now that would be normally +1 or whatever, but it's actual IX because it's the first value. It's the 1 there. We're changing that to 1 to 0. Next time it comes along the draw loop will check to see that it's alive and therefore won't draw it anymore. Now when we kill the food, we're going to want to reset it. It doesn't really matter because our X and Y are going to be set by a random thing, but Y will be set. We can set here because it's going to always be 0, so there's no point randomly generating that each time. But already killing me. Where is it? Kill food. So we load IX 0. We load IX +2 0. What we've done there is set is alive to 0 and set ypos to 0. Okay, that's all we need to do. Return. It's now going to jump back to there, and because that is already set, not reset the C, I believe this won't affect the flags, so that's going to still be there and it's going to return. Otherwise we would have problems where it starts adding speed to the positions of that dead item. So now it's still gonna have all the trails. We're not deleting it yet, but let's run it and make sure that works, and it should stop any of the white lines appearing. And it does. They just stay at the bottom. The only reason they stay at the bottom is because we're not deleting, as I say. If we to do my old hacky trick, the clear screen trick, it's going to be very flickery, but you'll see this is what it would look like if we had been deleting the spikes. Slows it down considerably, but they fall to the bottom. But we're not going to do that. We're obviously going to delete them. Load IX food data. There's a lot of repetition in this malarkey. Delete foods. I'm going to copy the draw foods function. I'm going to put this all the way up here. Okay, delete food. Oh, this is fine. All this works great. Delete, skip to next food. Doesn't need to delete it if it's already dead. Won't be drawn. I hope this will work. Come to think of it, I've just thought of a bug that might occur. It doesn't need that. Delete sprite is a function we've got, and it doesn't need HL obviously because it just draws zeros in. That's how it's deleted. And then loop back to the start. Okay, so now we should have some smoothish moving sprites falling down the screen. There we go. And I did have that problem that I mentioned. It's the way we killed the sprite. Where is kill food? There. We've set it to is alive 0, which means delete is not deleting it. Well, we could try. Try commenting that out. So now we've got unnecessary calls. Every time we've got calls on dead objects to delete them that aren't being drawn. So it's hacky. And it hasn't worked anyway. So some other problem. God, I never ran into any of these problems the first time. Oh, of course. Delete sprite. We got rid of this deck B, didn't we? That should be there. So we probably need to do the same here. There we go. It's raining burgers. Alright. Well, that didn't actually take long, did it? With all my waffling. About half an hour from when we started adding the burger to now. We've got a working sort of routine loop there. This is a whole game. If you imagine a game without any main menu or any game over screen or high scores, if it just had the one screen, you could do everything in here like we're doing. You know, we can make a game in here. And yes, we've got a couple of files here. I mean, they could have easily just been on the bottom of this file. Trying to think what to do next. Oh yeah, the random spawning. So we've already shown you the random number generator. I mean, you can obviously think of a way. We just want to randomly generate an X position. So do we want to randomly, do we also want a random interval between the burgers, you know, and also how many spawn at one time on the same frame? As it mentioned before, you would normally plan the game a lot more in advance. There'd be drawings of what it's going to look like, you know, detailed descriptions of the game scenes, and all this, how many burgers at once would be addressed. We're not going to do any of that. We're just, as I say, we're practicing looping, practicing drawing sprites. We're going to get to collision detection pretty soon. eventually we'll make a full game with a main menu and high scores. This is actually one of the more complicated bits with the screen memory and even this looping stuff here. You know, the main menu screen is not hard. Color is another one I'm actually struggling with myself. I know how to do the color routines and the formula for how to calculate the memory address. For some reason, I can't seem to draw lots of colors on the screen at the same time. Every frame, it seems to fail. So obviously my code's probably not optimal enough, or I'm doing it wrong completely. That's something I'm working on. It is my fond hope that we end up with some more experienced coders on the stream as well, who will actually talk us through. We can do ideas together, and you can, you know, if you are experienced, you can obviously help me out where I'm going wrong. I've demonstrated already how things can get moving pretty quickly and simply. We're going to now have to create a spawner. So we're going to want to make another function called like spawn food, you know. But this is where you really do have to think of the criteria, like what makes us a burger spawn in this game. I mean, this is our hello world of games for the specky, so it's going to be very, very straightforward. I'm thinking something like every 2 seconds one spawns and falls down at a random position, and then that interval decreases when you go up a level. It's going to be that straightforward. And the next project we make will probably be even more straightforward than that, but what that will do is that will have a main menu. We're going to have to investigate redefinable keys as well. That's another slightly more tricky subject. I don't like to even do it. In my little games I make, I just force a few different choices of keys on people. And that's another way around it. That's a lot easier. So anyway, let's visualize this. We've got some data for here, and really it doesn't matter what they are. The y's all need to be 0 though, because we don't want to waste code telling them to be 0 when we can just tell the compiler. And then when we kill it, we reset it to 0, which we've already done. So when, well, we want a timer, don't we? That's what we need now. We're going to define 2 more bytes, not constants. One is going to be, you could make this a constant, but we're going to adjust it for harder levels. So, well, in fact, let's make a constant. It's easier. And we'll do one for each level. So, food drop interval 1 for level 1. It's a constant, and it's every 5 seconds. So you get plenty of time. Again, we've already got a speed variable, and I'm going to put that down to 1 because realistically that's the lowest speed that we can get this sprite moving on the screen on the spectrum without using special tricks. Because it's character cells, it's like a console. You can't move half a character. But well, we do use lines, so we are moving down actually at a rate of lines. The sideways movement is in bytes, I believe, which is quite a chunk to move. Anyway, so they're all 1. That's the lowest speed. Of course, we can make floating point numbers, and we can use 16 bits, but we've got to keep it simple. I mean, I'm still struggling myself with how to do that. I don't want to do that on stream. But so just for completion, we'll make food drop 2 interval. So we've got level 2 sorted. And that'll do for now. And then we'll do food drop I'll do timer underscore food drop because it's just easier for me to type when I'm typing them out. Defined by db 0. We're going to increment every frame. But you can't just increment that directly, you have to do it via A or another, but basically via A or any other register. Well, no, you can't do it with any other, it's just through A. What is that red line that keeps, I don't like that. Breakpoint. I'll normally split my code up into files, and I'm getting frustrated with having to scroll all the time. Because I compulsively scroll, as you can probably tell, and I'm thinking, which is probably really annoying for someone watching, I'm sorry. We're just doing the timer, aren't we? I'm losing the plot. So we'll break it into a function later, but basically after your halt statement there, and we're now running in 50 Hertz, if we add more halts, this timer is going to be incremented slower. Do you understand? Because halt waits until the line scan of a TV is going back to its 0, 0 position from the last point in the TV. So there's nothing being drawn, and it waits for that moment. That happens 50 times per second on a normal TV in Great Britain at the time. So that's what the Spectrum was running at. But obviously the processor is running much faster than that. I mean, as fast as it can. So yeah, let's assume we're going to be able to maintain 50 Hertz with this game. And we'll base the timer on that. So really that 5 is nonsense that I put as an interval, because that's no time at all. I need to change that. I'm used to being able to divide and multiply on the fly, but that's still too short, isn't it? Let's try that. If my calculations are right, and it's getting late here, so I might be wrong completely, but we're going to be able to tick this up by 1 every frame. So that's going to be 5 seconds before the burger drop. So we load A. Let's make a space because it's a different bit. It's not related to the halt. We're loading A with the value of timer, not a pointer. We want its value, and it's currently 0 when we start the program. We inc A, and yet again my autocomplete is just a nightmare. Then we load the value back in to the same thing. You'll probably find you're doing that quite often. Okay, send it. I'll put a bit there. Increment time up. So now we want to compare. Well, we've got it in A. Might as well compare it right there with interval. Obviously interval 1, because we're not going to bother pretend I haven't even got interval 2 right now yet. Later on, again, we'll have to have more logic to decide what level we are on right now, but for now we're going to assume there's only one level. So has timer reached, well, let's be a bit more specific, compare timer with interval. And again, looking at my flags reference, which I can never memorize. The more than or equal is, it means the C flag will be reset. So we're looking for NC. Call NC. Obviously we'll need to reset the timer, but we can do that in this function that we're going to call. But what is our main purpose of the timer? It's to drop food. So we're going to spawn food. And then just, oh no, I'm not. I'll put spawn food here. I don't know if it needs money inputs. Obviously it needs the food. It doesn't need to loop. Oh, of course it does. It will need to loop. And I'm going to move it down to where the other loops are. It does need to loop because it needs to check if the one it spawns is already alive or not. Even though at the moment there's only going to be one on screen, obviously, because what about the time? There's only going to be one on screen right now, the way we're setting this up, because it's every 5 seconds and it doesn't take 5 seconds to drop completely, I don't think so. So this one should be called spawn foods. Let's leave the underscore as well. In fact, let's delete that. Let's copy the draw one because that's more complete. Need to update some of these comments. Spawn a food that is not already alive. If you write your code in such a way like this, you can end up doing a lot of copy and paste. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Doesn't need the bitmap. Doesn't need cool sprite, but it does need something there. Let's just worry about the rest of this. Well, we need to think about this actually because it's looking for a dead one. We can probably simplify this a lot because we actually want to find out if it's dead and spawn it. This instead of skipping on, but we only want to skip on if it's already alive. So in fact we can change that to alive this time. Is it alive? If yes, if it equals 0, for comparison, find another one. If it equals no, spawn sprite. Now we don't need to actually create a function here for that. IX is already the pointer we need for that correct bit of food, so we can just make it alive. Load IX 1. Okay, so now we've got no randomization yet for the X position, but as I always preach, we should try and keep the segments very small. Let's try and test it. To make sure that currently what we want it to do is, for a start, put that above there. Does that make sense otherwise to me? But right now it should spawn every 5 seconds. We need to we definitely immediately need to put the timer. I think A is already the timer actually. But we need to load that timer value with 0. But you can't load a value straight into a byte like that. You have to load it into A first, so we X or A. Make A equals 0. Load. What do I need to make 0 again? I've forgotten. Oh, the timer. So load timer. With a bracket because it's the value I'm changing, and you can't use a value there, so you have to use A. Okay. It's fine. Again, this could be optimized because that's happening every time we loop, and it only needs to happen when we begin the loop, so I could really put that here, or we'd have to make its own function or jump to it with a conditional jump. But we're going to leave it where it is. It's fine. I actually think this will work now. It won't be random, like I say. It will just be. Oh, here we go. The error line 26. Oh, spawn food is undefined. Okay. One day there'll probably be a better IDE. There probably already is. For refactoring and stuff, you can't do that in this. Alright, well it spawned too quick. But it did work. Normally I can hover over that and see the value of that. Let me just try. 250 was it? Yeah. NC more than or equal. That should work in my opinion, but so put timer, I think. That should only be getting called when A is over 250. I don't know why it happens straight away. Same again. Can anyone spot what I've done wrong? I certainly can't. So why is it calling spawn food so quickly? Yeah, I'm just going to try that. It's just an idea, just in case it somehow got lost. I don't think this is not going to work, but bit of trial and error. No, still the exact same. Maybe it's getting late, I just don't have a clue. Should have started the stream earlier. By the way, I don't think many people are watching this, so I'm mainly talking to myself, but I am going to be on in the daytime tomorrow for a couple of hours. I'm working in the evening, but I work not until that late. I get back before midnight, so I may be on again in the evening or in the night time, but in the daytime at about early afternoon I'm planning on doing another hour or two. But I really want to figure this out before I shut down, really. It should be happening 50 times a second. Load to A one time with a value of 0, puts it up to 1, puts the value in there. Compares with the value 250, it should just skip that 50 times 1 second. I'm going to try making it 50, I guess, just see whether that helps. Can't see how it worked. Oh, what the hell's happened there? See, that can't make a difference. That bug will happen still. No. What? My mind's blown. What could cause that? Is it because I'm tired, or is it just what the hell? Why isn't that working like it should do? Come on, someone tell me. Call NC spawn food. Has that got a return in it? Something to do with not returning out of this. Maybe we can just put the return there actually. And let's comment that because that's not very clear what that's doing. Set is alive to true or to 1. Yeah, I hope this might work. Well, there is a delay there between them, isn't there? It's not very long. It's out of interest. Yeah, so they instantly spawn. Have I got them all as alive still? It's always the most simple thing. Keep it simple, stupid. The KISS phrase. There we go. This is going to hopefully work now. I'm worried it's going to be too long to wait between the spawns. Let's have a look. It is a very long time. Let's put that value down. Let's try 5. And in fact, let's delete that. Don't want it there, it's getting in my way. Now nothing's spawning. And what the hell, he's not drawing it anymore. God knows what I've done here. Let me change that back a sec, because for some reason this isn't affecting it. That'll blow my mind if this now works. What? But it'll probably be a bloody long wait. Okay, nothing spawned. Might have to rewrite this whole thing. Timer goes to 0. I mean, always return, reset time of food drop. That doesn't change the flags. No, it doesn't, so that's fine. Or I'll just check X or doesn't, maybe that might be why. What flag are we worried about? C. Ah, C flag's cleared. Okay. I'll do LD a 0 instead. So it should work now. Let's put this value down again. I think it's a bit too high. Let's put 20. Just in case it's in seconds. That's going to be half a second now, so it won't be any good. Be less than half a second. They're still not spawning. I really expected them to spawn that go. And the face is drawn funny again. Unbelievable. How is changing that doing that? Something's completely wrong. I won't change any of this off air ever, so because there's nothing more frustrating than when you try and follow some code and someone changes it off air. Oh god, I didn't mean to do any of that. That's what I meant to do. I'm deleting the function to reset the timer. I'm going to pull that back into there. Pop that right at the top. Spawn food. Delete that. I'm going to check that LD doesn't change any flags. I'm 99% sure it's a true statement. No flags are altered except for IR registered. Shouldn't be such a problem, this. I'm obviously doing this too late. None of this stuff normally causes me a problem. Might just try writing the amount in as well. Well, the face is drawn correctly. A long time to wait, maybe even indefinite. What's going wrong there? Why isn't that getting called? Oh, his face has gone weird again. Something to do with check spawn. Oh, that's why. Huh. I never put IX into the food data. It's always so straightforward. I bet if you're watching that at home, you're screaming at the TV. It's obvious, isn't it? I just assumed it was there, I don't know. I think this will work. I hope I haven't wrecked it with all the rubbish that I've done in between. There we go. We can start to see how this works with the intervals. We've got 50 hertz. I'm expecting an interval of 50 to take 1 second. So therefore, obviously 40 would take 4/5 of a second. One second. There you go. So we're starting to see a game develop here, aren't we, really? I think I've got the spawn too the max Y is too low because they're actually despawning before it reaches the player. But the reason they're scattered in the same area all the time is we've just specified the same X value, in a constant pattern. But you can see how it works, it's looping through them. If they're not alive, it just spawns them next. We could actually change the interval down and it should spawn lots more of them. We could actually copy and paste. Whoa. Oh, shit. Okay. Let's make this one default. Okay, that's all correct. So yeah, we can copy a lot of them because we might want loads eventually. And put the interval down to, let's pretend this is the highest level for a second. We'll put it down to 1/10 of a second. No, 1/5 of a second. Because it's 50 hertz, obviously, so you get 50 frames per second. Oh, it's not liking how many there are at all. So that's probably a bit excessive. We're not going to need that many. Let's go for that. And also it's not liking that they're all in the same position. Let's put this up to, let's just put it up to 15, which is, roughly, a third of a second, just under. I think it was struggling again, yeah. So this code we've written, and this draw code specifically, especially I should say, it's not actually optimal because it allows for any size sprite, and it starts messing around with like checking the size of the sprite and looping. But if we didn't do that, and if we wrote this code for every single size of sprite separately, we could minimalize the code down, crunch it down, and I reckon it would spew a few more sprites out there without doing that problem there. But let's put it right back down to that. I don't think it's the interval that's doing it, I think it's the number of sprites. That's quite a bit more smooth work. Are some of them? Oh, I think some. No, they're all Y0. One problem after another, innit? Let's put this back down to every 1 second, see if that problem still occurs with loads. Well, I won't need, be absolutely no need for loads with. Oh, of course. Yes. Because it's looping through them all the time, isn't it? So we found a limitation in this code already. Because these loops, you know, are taking quite a long time when there's a lot of the dead ones, even though it's exiting out pretty quickly when it finds a dead one. Well, it's not even exiting out, it's only skipping that little bit when it draws. Other than that, it does that for every single one every frame. Now, well, this is a good point. I can bring this up to you now. Let's put quite a few in, and let's put this down to 15. But this time we're going to add a halt somewhere else. Probably makes sense to do it just before the draw, actually. So now we're running at 25 frames, and therefore we would want to remember that when we're doing these. It's counting that much slower, so we're really going to want to do that. And I think 25 frames per second for this game would be about right. We can probably get away with 17 if it really struggles. Still will work. It'll feel pretty much the same on this console, on this computer. So we've got them spawning now correctly. There's a lot of them, and they're flickering. Just out of interest, we could try another halt. We can get away with one more halt in this loop. But is it useful there? Not so much. It's made very little difference. So we're not going to use that. Of course, by using two halts, the speed variable is actually half as effective, if you think about it as well. But 25 will do, and we don't need that many. We'll try that, and we will make it an interval of 18. This one could be 16 for now. Still flickering, but it's better. Kind of. Gonna have to try and figure that out. I've got more sprites in my other working game that don't flicker. So it's obviously the way we've done these loops. And there you go. It's still starting to flicker. Not a lot though. I mean, you can put up with a tiny bit of flickering on the spectrum, but that's unacceptable, really, isn't it? So again, I mean, we will finish this game off and we'll do the collision and add a scoring system and stuff. But next time we're going to have to redo this from scratch, all this drawing code. Try and find a way of doing it faster. I mean, I'm not only going to code in assembly, I'm also going to code in 6502, I think it's called, for the for the C64 and NES, which would be a great lot of fun. A lot of this knowledge here will be transferable. Lots of the LDA, it's all going to be there. Compare. It's just maybe called comp or something instead of CP. But the principles are the same. It's, obviously you've got to learn how that processor works. It won't have the same amount of registers. It runs slower actually, the CPU in the Commodore and the NES for that matter. Excuse me. We're coming towards the end of this stream. I mean, we've got the moving sprites on there now. I'm going to maybe have a think about why they're flickering when I go away. It's definitely to do with having all them loops. It's too many loops. We need to either reduce the number of loops or make all the loops more efficient. Seems to be running at the top of the screen, which is very weird because normally it's stuff at the bottom that flickers. Because the scan line gets to the bottom and you start writing data. So we're still writing data. It's at the top. I suppose that does make sense. I wonder if we can just put a halt somewhere different to sort it all out. I mean, this seems stupid, but let's try it. We do it right there. And we haven't got one at the very start anymore, which just seems odd to me. I think in every example I've ever seen, they've had one at the start, but oh, did I just cover the screen? Basically, I've put the hole there. I've moved it from up there to there. And now it's just before we, so we actually call the spawn function before the interrupt. That's probably not going to work. We probably want the exact opposite of that actually, but let's try it anyway. No, it's terrible now. So that's quite interesting. We can move it back. Perhaps if this was actually up here. No, it's still pretty bad. In fact, I think we had it in the best places before. I mean, I've never tried having just two halts just before the draw. Oh, that's worked well. Oh, it hasn't. Again, this doesn't seem right, but I'll try putting all of them just before the draw. It's not as good. There's a lot of trial and error for me here. I'd say I've arrived at the fact that we had it about as good as it could be. It's interesting that on my other project I have larger sprites with a lot more sprites and a lot more logic code going on. Yet They very rarely flicker. You do get the occasional flicker that I've lived with, especially if they pass over each other. But I've got the score on there and everything, you know. I don't know what's going on with this one. I'll try and find a way of speeding it all up. It can't be right like this. I mean, there's an advanced technique called double buffering on the video that I need to learn and then demonstrate to you while I'm learning it, you know, once I've learned that. Oh, this delete sprite on every frame isn't great either. I remember that was a mistake, I think, when we were trying to fix something. This could help frame rate. This might be the flicker source. There you go. Ah, it flickers. It's always the third and fifth, fourth and fifth. So it's maxing out at 3 burgers and a face before it starts flickering. So we can't have a very complex game in this engine. I just want to see the difference it makes getting rid of this halt. No, that made it worse. Some of them didn't get drawn at all. So yeah, we found the source. It's just not doing it quick enough. So, okay, need to figure out how to get around that. If you've got this far, thank you very much. I would really appreciate a follow and a like. That would be really, really helpful to me. I'm going to continue. This is nearly the end of the video now, but I'm going to definitely continue this blundering series, just messing through the code, you know, bit by bit. This is how beginners do it. So I hope it's helpful to someone somewhere. I think it will be. I don't think there's anything little I can do before I end the video, just as a little extra bonus. We want to get into collision detection next. We'll add a score, and we'll collect burgers, and they'll go up. The score will go up, and we'll have lives. We'll either have it where the burgers can't hit the floor, or there'll be some bad food that you don't want to eat that will kill you. But that we can't do that now. It's going to take a long time. So it's been a very non-productive stream. I do apologise, but we've learned a bit. Again, I think at the very start of the video we hadn't even got any loops at all, had we? So we've actually looked at how to loop through and iterate through that pointer, and we're using the data. And by seeing my failings, we've sort of, and how we got to arrive at the right result, we've seen, you know, the kind of issues you can incur or come across. Speaking of cross, don't need that anymore, do we? But I believe if you stick with this series, you'll be able to very quickly, actually, in just a few more lessons, you should be able to grab what you've learned here and have an empty notepad and just start writing it and then think, right, okay, I want to draw a face on the screen, you know. Just start there. That's the way to do it. And it's like that with all programming languages. In Unity with C# and with C++ in Unreal, I've made some insanely good games. You know, I've made first-person shooter games. I've made platform 2D, 3D platform, None of them have been brilliant. They've been buggy as hell. You know, some of them look fantastic, the shooters that I made. But this is a different ball game altogether. You've got a lot of limitations, and you haven't got any built-in functions to help you do anything. So, you know, it's all about having fun. And if you learn this language, as I say, you can take that through to 6502 for NES, Commodore 64. There's also Amstrad CPC and Game Boy that use Z80 variants, and even today's processors, they have assembly language on them, the 8086 and all that, and it's not massively different. Yeah, it is different to this, but these concepts still apply. So I hope someone enjoys this video, and you know, be lovely to see you in the chat at some point. One day we'll have some chats and we'll work with ideas from the chat. That'll be the best way of doing it. I think you'll ask a question and we'll just get it working. We'll just try and do what you suggest, you know. Unless it's something ridiculous like, oh, I had a 3D game into my Spectrum that's like a bit like Fortnite or something. Well, I'm going to end it. It's gone over 2 hours. But I'm going to come online tomorrow in the daytime and in the night time. So I'll see you then. Thank you. Goodbye. Good night.